Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well-being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinela. We hope you enjoy the show. On today's episode of the Optimized Advisor Podcast, I had the good pleasure of having Ryan George, the CMO of Docupace, a leading cloud-based FinTech platform that simplifies how financial services and wealth management firms process and digitize data, costs, and increasing efficiency, productivity, and profits. They've raised more than $70 million to date and serve some of the largest independent broker-dealers and registered investment advisors in the financial services industry. Docupace was also named to the 2021 Inc. 5000 list of the nation's fastest growing private companies and won the 2021 Gold Globee Award for Hot Technology of the Year. Ryan, welcome in.
Thank you very much, Scott. I'm so happy to be here.
We are especially pleased to have you here. So on this show, what we try to do is hit one of three topics, and I think you're going to be able to be more than one. We'll probably touch on a couple.
Let's go for the trifecta.
So one, I don't know about that. I appreciate that, though. Let's see if we can do that. So helping advisors optimize their life, helping them optimize their practice, which is specifically this topic here today, and learning from other optimized advisors, where I would say a CMO like you has certainly had your trials and tribulations and lessons learned over the years that we might be able to glean just a little something from.
I've spent almost 2 decades working with advisors, so I have a bit of experience there.
There you go. So let's start with that. Tell me about your journey to get to where you are today and what brought you to Docupace.
Sure. So I'm a financial services nerd, so I've been in this business in different facets in different areas of the business, but in the sort of financial services, wealth management space since I got out of college. So let's just say I had fun in college. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on what was next. So I think I had.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Antonio. Went to school at the University of Texas at Austin and Hookham.
There you go.
And then returned back to San Antonio when I realized that me and 50,000 of my fellow graduates can all stay in Austin for jobs back then. But I got a shot because my grandfather was a maintenance person at a mutual fund company. He actually came with the building. They bought the building. He was working for the company that was there before, and he just sort of stayed. And so he had worked with them, and he talked the CEO into giving me a shot. So I, like most people in this business, I was on the phones answering calls. A bell rings. Thank you for calling. Yes. So how can I help you?
So UT degree in what?
In public relations.
Okay.
Right. So I ended up getting licensed, and I'd always had interest in this business. What I think was sort of a serendipitous event was I got to be able to use my public relations skill in the business industry that I was really interested in. Mm-hmm. So that's something where I got very lucky because it's helped me learn faster. It's helped me build other skills. But having that rep background, I think, has really informed how I do my job today. So I spent about a little bit less than 2 years in that role, then moved to the public relations department at a company called U.S. Global Investors, a mutual fund company. We were big in natural resources, emerging markets, back when the BRICS were the big thing, back in the 2000s, which was great. And then my wife and I were doing long distance. She's from Coppell, which is up here in North Texas, and I decided it was time to move to Dallas. So I moved houses, moved up here, got married, and had a new job, all in like a 3-week period back in 2012, which was not something I recommend. It's a lot of change at once.
Right.
But so I started working in the broker-dealer space, worked there for 8.5 years. We had an owner exit and sold that business, and now I'm at Docupace. So I've been in the sort of asset management investment side. I've been in the broker-dealer sort of advisory side, and now I'm in the wealth tech, FinTech side, which is all sort of completes the triangle there.
So I have a question, a sidebar question. Coppell is on what side of 35?
It's on the west side.
So would that be more closer to Fort Worth, or would it be Dallas?
Yes. So we go to both, but I think my wife and I prefer the tone of Fort Worth a little bit more. Like we have season tickets for plays at Bass Hall at Fort Worth, not at the Dallas or the Symphony.
Right. It's an interesting observation. For those who reside here for a period of time, you clearly identify that if I am Fort Worth, I don't necessarily want to be associated with Dallas. And I make it pretty clear that if I am Dallas, I don't necessarily want to be associated with Fort Worth.
Very much so. The cultures and tones of the two cities are very different.
Very different. And I'm with you. My natural fit is definitely lends itself more to the Fort Worth feel, vibe, environment, such.
Sure. Absolutely. We're Texans, right?
That's right. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are, Docupace. What the heck is Docupace?
So Docupace is a platform that advisors use and broker-dealers use and wealth management firms use to make business easier. So think account opening, account workflow, anything that's paperwork, so digitize anything paperwork, e-signature, compliance regulation. We have some compliance and surveillance tool as well. So all the stuff that we consider back office, not to get too jargony, but it's all the stuff that doesn't include an advisor working directly with, or a rep or an agent working directly with the client. It's all the stuff that happens behind the scenes in order to get the paperwork processed, to get the accounts opened, and do all those things that are critically important for moving the business forward. So our system helps prevent what they call NIGOs, so rejections, the paperwork going back. It helps make workflow across large enterprise work, centralized process. It's the sexiest thing in workflow that you could have in wealth management.
I will tell you, I've spent some time on the website. I haven't really dove into the actual product and the specifics of the product, but I have gone through each of the segments of the website. The website is fantastic.
Thank you.
The interface is wonderful. The way it articulates the different services and benefits that it does provide, one of which includes a calculator for an advisor or whoever the potential user is, can quickly do this speaks directly to helping advisors optimize their practice.
Absolutely. So we want to remove those mundane, repetitive, overly manual tasks in everybody's business. And you know this probably better than I do. If you look at all the studies of where advisors spend their time, it's a significant chunk of it is on stuff that isn't about the client, isn't about the advisor, isn't about their business. It's just about sort of moving beans around the plate. And I think we try to make that less so, and also, be a connective tissue to all the other technologies that they have in their system, and to if they have one custodian or two custodians or another wealth management partner. So connecting all that system together just takes steps out of the process and makes things more easy.
Are there limitations to the products that you have? When I say physical insurance or investment products, are there limitations to your platform and what it provides?
So that is all based on what, a significant chunk of our business is an independent broker dealer space. So think Cetera Financial Group, Advisor Group, Avantex, which is also based over here in Irving. It's all what they decide. So we are agnostic to our forms bundling and mapping process. Can whatever the form is, we can be able to turn it into a digital process.
It's interesting conversation. Just yesterday, I was having a chat with an advisor who was up in Amarillo, and he's usually out and about. But he's like, today or tomorrow, so yesterday and today, are perfect time for us to catch up. These are set aside as my monthly paperwork days, and I have to do 3 full days, which are, he says, anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day, just buried in paperwork, so that I could play catch up for all the other meetings that I've ran this month.
I doubt I'm going to go out.
And he's not alone.
Yeah,
he does have a branch.
Those aren't the favorite 2 or 3 days he has of the month.
That's exactly right. He was so frustrated, just beside himself almost, that this is a requisite of his business.
The problem has grown bigger over time. So think of, let's just walk back to, say, 2000, when you would have an account to open up an investment or like a brokerage account. You probably had 3 pages. And then a new regulation would come and it added 2 more pages. And then another regulation came and it added 4 more pages. So over time, you have these stacks of papers that are, you want to open an advisory account, it's a 45-page. You want to open up a life, like a UIT, or another variable annuity. There's so much disclosure and so many different documents that are needed in order to do them. The client doesn't understand them. The advisor hates them. And so we try to make this process much more simpler and better for the client. And the reason I think where Docupace comes into the process, and I think it's important, is the advisor does all this work to get the client on board, right? So whether they're referral, whether they're marketed to them, whether they've been sitting next to them in church for 10 years and finally saw an opportunity to bring them into the business, when they have all that paperwork together and submit it, we don't want them to have any problem or any friction in that process because we know how hard they worked to get there. And making sure that there's frictionless, that it actually goes through and the client can have the confidence that they're working with the right person, is something that I think Docupace tries to adhere to, and also make it as good of experience as possible.
So what the other thing that's frustrating is use the insurance word as an example. We find ourselves dealing with a lot of redundancy. Mm-hmm. Redundant in document, redundant in explanations, redundancy in questions. Does the software have any, I guess for lack of better description, intuitiveness to help fill some of those gaps?
Yeah, absolutely. So within our account application process, we call it forms bundling, and we actually call it a tool called Quick Start. If you enter your first name, Scott, it would populate Scott in all the rest of the documents where first name is needed. And if there was a discrepancy in the data, we'd have a red arrow that shows up that says, this is incorrect. You need to correct that. So that is one thing that definitely makes it easy. So all you have to do is, you can suck in that information from your CRM. And if it lines up correctly, you probably only have to answer in a few more fields.
Okay, so let's talk through the math a little bit. So, and advise, certainly go to the Docupace website, and there's a calculator on there. But let's just, if we can we walk through a live example of how this actually monetizes for an advisor's practice?
I was told there would be no math today, but let's go ahead.
Well, that's okay. We can bring out the calculator, and matter of fact, maybe I could even pull up the website. So let's do this here.
So the interesting thing about the calculator is it derived from people saying, so software's great. Like, what does it get me?
Exactly. I got to pay for the software. How am I really monetizing this? Does it really add value?
And what we know is you can't just simply say, oh, well, you hire less people. Because the promise of that is true, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's always the case.
So sidebar note regarding hiring less people, AI.
So we're building AI into the platform right now.
What does that mean for Docupace specifically?
So a couple of things. One is analysis of data. So using AI to report on data and find out, your junior processor over here has been slowing down or he's been making mistakes. Here's how you can correct that. So that'd be like one AI piece. Another piece is we actually launched a joint partnership early last year with a company called Jiffy.ai. For an intelligent mailroom. So while we talk so much about paperwork, one of the things that's probably the biggest scar on the industry is returned mail. So you're forced to send out the 36-month letter anytime an account on a address on an account is changed, and you have to send a letter to both addresses. Because of that, it generates an incredible amount of return mail that has to be processed because you have to be able to keep your records up to date. Mm-hmm. The intelligent mailroom helps. Tries to eliminate that and make sure the systems are updated just by scanning in the forms through OCR and making that up. That's just one example.
Interesting.
I think one of the things that we're looking for too with ChatGPT, you can use it to write code. You can use Bard to help write code and make things faster, like with documentation and instruction. So using that in our knowledge base and in our service organization, so people can take the entire depth of this website that we have that's for documentation and training, and be able to spit that right back out into the answer that's fast and easy to essentially make it like very more friendly to what the users actually directly needed, because we have directly sold to enterprises historically, right? So we've sold to advisor group who then distributes it to their 8,000 advisors.
Right.
We don't have training to train 8,000 advisors. We have a trainer approach.
That's your website that came up with a ding. Time to get the ebook.
Oh yeah, sorry, my team. We just
no, it's great.
We just created a new.
So what is the ebook?
The ebook is December of last year we launched a new product called the RA Productivity Suite. So it was basically putting the power of the platform that's historically been in large enterprises lower down in the market in the hands of smaller RIAs and smaller enterprise firms.
Okay, so beginning now to funnel down.
Yes.
Not just full enterprise, like advisor group level firms.
Correct.
And things of this nature. Okay.
Yes. So selling into, the ideal profile is a RA that has 20 or more advisors, and generally has multiple offices that you can put them on a centralized process and centralize the work. So like one assistant would be able to conserve, say, 10 advisors because of being able to centralize it into the system. We built it also to be somewhat out of the box. So there's out-of-the-box integrations with Redtail, Wealthbox, Practify, Salesforce. So that already connects, and it doesn't need to be configured. It's already ready to go. We also have some pre-configured workflows based on sort of a smaller RAA, medium-sized RAA, and a large-sized RAA that they can turn on and go quicker as well. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to help that market as the RAA market consolidates and matures. The need for enterprise systems, I think, is pretty profound because they have built themselves through non-enterprise tools like Zapier, or it's a series of band-aids that they've been able to grow their business to the ceiling that they are now. To get to the next level, they need to start looking at more holistically over the business and see how they can make the work better.
Interesting.
So that white paper was hours and hours of research. That was the result of hours and hours of research I did to show here's where the market's going. Here's where the smart people, not myself, they're all sourced in the paper, say that this is what you need to do to be ready for the future, and so that's what that ebook is.
So can you share with us maybe 1, 2, or 3 of the findings?
Sure. So I think a lot of it talks about what we just said, which is the profound need for automation,
right?
Looking to
Integration of technology, the seamless integration of technology, the creation of efficiencies in your business, all of these things, right? Actually
using data to really inform your decisions. I think it's something that people talk a lot about data today, and they talk about big data, and they talk about this other stuff. Start small. Like, what's one area of your business that the data you have, how can you use it to inform other things? Think about data that's in your CRM or data that's in your account system.
Yeah, give me an example.
If you've lost a client, that you could actually look back at different interactions within the CRM, and if you've lost multiple ones, which hopefully they hadn't, and see what are the red flags or what were the patterns looking back that you maybe could have keyed on and saved the relationship earlier if you would have known about it. Mm-hmm. So you can do this through the data that you have today.
Interesting.
And that's, with the last, say, 10, 15 years of technology, we've been able to really get good at gathering data.
Right.
Just not necessarily using the data.
Yeah. How do we interpret the data that we actually possess?
Yes. The other thing is growth of teaming. So if you're an advisor, you are the advisory business, but you've got an insurance person that you're likely working with, whether they're on staff or within some sort of partnership. You've got an attorney who can do trust work. You've got a CPA who can do tax and accounting work. I think that's what you're really finding is the sort of jack of all trades. Well, the advisor is the one who's at the hub that brings them all together.
Right.
And I think that that's a critical piece in how the market is shifting, because people are looking for not only, financial advice or investment advice, but they're looking for life advice, right? So they're looking for that sounding board, that trusted advisor that they can lean on when they need to.
Right. Interesting. Okay. So let's go back. I got the calculator up here.
Okay.
And I think the static parameters are pretty fair in the sense that the first requisite is how many minutes do you basically, either you or your assistant, which is an interesting point, spend on processing or completing an application. There's 40 minutes. I'd say that's pretty fair and reasonable. The interesting point is the dollar value at which I'm allocating to an assistant versus what my time is worth is a huge variable. And in the case that I gave, even though they're part of a team, the advisor is actually taking it upon himself to allocate 2 to 3 full days for doing that. Where's his time most valuable spent? We all know interfacing directly with clients. Anyways, sidebar. What is your average hourly rate? You have $35 an hour. Okay, that's fair enough. That's good. The NIGO rate, 30%. So this is, well, how does that metric specifically come into play in terms of valuation?
So that metric is the 30% is what is the standard typical industry rate.
Right.
Our users are below 5% generally in the NIGO rate. So
you're basically eliminate the NIGO. What that tells me is that the NIGOs that are result are either I just completely I added a 0 or I omitted some. I missed a bit of information.
Or they're qualitative. Like, for instance, there's a question on suitability, and there needs some additional information that maybe isn't normal to this particular situation.
Right. Okay.
Other things like that. It's not like.
I didn't expand enough on said topic, so they come back and that's classified as a NIGO.
Sure. Or this, if we were to do this transaction on this trade in this account, it misaligns with the other accounts that are happening. So that sort of thing. But the reason the NIGO metric is important within the specific calculator is, which if you have a NIGO, then you have to go back and do all that work, or at least a good portion of that work over again. So then you're just basically creating in this churn.
Right. Okay. And then the last metric is how many applications is processed each month. There's 250 in here. So that would be probably more on a firm level.
Yes. That'd be on a firm level. And it's also like you could bring on one client, say like a generally not high net worth, but affluent client from their business, and probably open up 5 accounts for the family, if not more, in that process.
Even if I slide it all the way down to only, let's say, 50 applications, right? So individual advisor, or even 25 applications, the monetary value from an individual advisor standpoint is a savings of $6,454. Now, from your standpoint of saying, look, mid-level RIA wealth management firms, 10 advisors, staff of 20 to 25 in total, right? You're talking about 2 to 250 applications. Now you're looking at $65,000 of annual savings.
Yep.
I wouldn't imagine the software costs that much.
Not for that level of volume, it would not.
Got it.
That number of users. So we structure it. I could do the pricing real quick. So we have a licensing fee that gets you into the system, and that's based on how many different capabilities you're turning on and sort of the volumes and other things like that, because it does take work to keep those. And then there's a user fee based on the number of users. And we have it split between a sort of a super user, admin user, and a regular user. But they're generally commensurate. I mean, I actually think it's low market to where I see other technology companies are at. But we're okay if we're below market if it gets us in the hands of more people.
Okay, so let's talk dive a little bit deeper about the platform and some of the service. So example, empowering incoming advisors.
Yep.
What resources are applicable in that category?
Sure. So we have an advisor transitions team, an advisor and transitions program. When an advisor is changing a wealth management provider, whether it's a custodian or broker-dealer, which generally those sometimes go together, they've made a decision to significantly disrupt the business that they worked their blood, sweat, and tears into building by forcing their clients and themselves to go through what typically called the repapering process, meaning every single client, if they're to stay working with that advisor, has to sign a new application, all new paperwork with the new provider in order to stay working with that advisor. It's a total mess. It's causes so many headaches and anxiety for advisors. It generally can take anywhere from 6 to 7 to 8 months doing it manually to actually track down all of your clients and get them to repaper.
Complete all this paperwork.
Yes. So our system with the program basically helps pre-populate those account forms that need to be signed and allows them to be done with digital signature. Whether it's DocuSign, SignX, or even Docupace has developed our own digital signature, so that it just speeds up the process by filling in, taking information from one place and putting it into another. What I think is really unique about that program is our advisor transitions team that helps the advisor manage through the transition, because I think they're some part counselor, some part data analyst,
Right.
Because it can be a bumpy road, and advisors see the risk in their business, and so sometimes a lot of what they're doing is just basically using their experience and doing this over and over time. I think we are over 400 or 300 transitions just this year. So we do it a lot, and the team does it a lot. So they know what to expect, and they know what's important. What the data is very clear because we track all this. So I mentioned it could be 6, 7, 8 months on a normal basis.
Right.
We have, I think, around 88% of client accounts based on what transitions we've done are transitioned within 90 days. Transition within 60 days.
Wow. So within 2 months, 85+% of the book is transferred over.
And there's a very clear reason why it's not higher. It's because the advisors like to leave some of the clients they don't want to take with them back at the other place.
Okay, so if you extract that, then you're going to be in the 90+%. Wow.
So I'm not saying it's not painless, but we take them as much of the pain out of the process.
And so it bundles all of the paperwork. So not just the organic firm paperwork. If I have insurance, let's talk about variable annuities or other ancillary products that have this bundle of paperwork that's in addition to.
That would all be ready to go as soon as the transition has begun.
Wow, that's fantastic.
There are little hiccups here and there, like if, say, like a private investment that one broker-dealer allows for and the other one doesn't, those may stay. But those are all just one-offs. Those don't really have much to do.
There's always exceptions. Yeah. Okay. Next up would be additional solutions that include like review advertisements and talking about alternative investments?
So we have some ability with workflow to create advertising review. It's not our main business, but because we have an enterprise software that's in the back office that can route documents and information and work items wherever who is ever within the organization, those things.
Interesting. Okay, what else is there that we might be missing?
So there's the compliance and surveillance software. So we bought a company called Jacamo in May of 2021, and they do two main things. We call it a compliance suite, but the two big anchors, I would say, are surveillance. So trading surveillance to make sure that I think they have 47 or 48 different triggers or red flags. So when a trade goes through, it could be like, oh, this is churning, or this advisor is selling away, or what have you. There's a number of them. It's a pretty awesome system because it basically helps people get in trouble. And we're doing some development on that software to actually do pre-trade surveillance. So before the advisor actually submits the trade, you could find the red flags in it. So we're excited about that tool. The other tool is...
So wait, the advisor pre-populates the information, and you can basically informally run it against this software to say, are there any red flags?
When they hit submit, it won't go through.
Right.
Depending on how they configure it, right?
Got it.
When I say red flags,
It's a capability.
There's some orange flags, yellow flags, and green flags, right? Then there's the compensation system, which is a part of Jacamo, which is basically helps with revenue splitting and payment of compensation, commissions.
Okay, so that's all. So billing and
So
any ancillary or outside commissions that would come in as well.
It doesn't do the calculation of billing, but it does the back end part of that, like the last step.
Interesting.
So we would partner with like a Ready2 or other AdvicePay as another billing software.
Okay, and I know you mentioned this quickly, but just revisit maybe a little bit more in detail. It's integration with different CRM solutions.
So we have vast number of integrations. I think there's over 37 that we've worked on. The deepest ones are within CRMs like Redtail, Wealthbox, Salesforce.
Okay, those would be you're covering how much of the market?
Smart Office.
Yeah.
And then we also do business with all of the custodians. So Fidelity, Pershing, Schwab, Apex is a client of ours. RBC Wealth Management is a client of ours. So we're deeply integrated with the custodians on the other end. And then I think the other leg of the stool is we deeply integrate with TAMPs like Investat that for the trading and portfolio management system. So we think Docupace sort of sits in the hub of those and can connect those, create what would appear to be a seamless end-to-end system through good integration.
Interesting. So do you have any direct relationships or partnership with actual insurance companies?
So Athene is a large client of ours.
It is. Okay.
And they use the system heavily. I was actually with a handful
So
of
that would be them internally?
Yes. So they are in the workflow and document management side. That's how they maintain all of the documents to open up a theme product.
Wow.
We also work with like One America is another one that's insurance. And a lot of the insurance broker dealers, so Farmers Financial Solutions, Allstate, on their broker dealer side. We are their main. Their main.
So with One America, is it also on the BD side of their?
Yes.
Okay.
But one of the things we're interested in exploring more is on the insurance product side. How can we help them? So in two areas of insurance.
Because right now, I'm sure you're familiar with the main application entry portal tool, which is Firelight.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've done integrations with Firelight. We haven't. It's not. I wouldn't say it's productized and ready to go. We've done it at the request of some of those clients that I just named. So it functions well. But what we want to look at two areas I think that could be possible areas for growth. One is independent insurance agents. What do they need to tie in with their agency, their AMS, and how can we benefit there? It's not a place that we've dealt with much. And also the providers like Athene that I mentioned, or even One America. What are other ways we can help them with the same system, just applied differently?
Yeah, I mean, you think about our business. I mean, as you know, insurance industry in general is behind the times. COVID has been an accelerant, I think, for pretty much most businesses, for everybody. So done a very, very good and effective job within the last, let's say, 36 months to move forward, where I think aside from that would have been 5 to 10 years in the making for many of the companies. But we still, I think, have a long way to go. And the challenge that I see is just the seamless communication integration across multiple products, multiple companies, with the different facets of the business. So if there's ways that can be, if there can be efficiencies created and technologies integrated to help with all that, will be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on something that is a huge pain point. I think
It's a huge
people are
pain point.
suffering more from it than I think they're ready to admit. Like I know one broker dealer, a large broker dealer, I won't say whom, that they told me that they have over 200 applications in action right now. Meaning there's 200 different software applications that are helping run their business. You know, it was well I did. Like 50 of those are probably zombie softwares that have been, those companies have been long gone. They're still just using them for stuff. And that's a huge challenge. One of the things that Docupace is doing to try to help combat that is opening up our APIs to outside developers. So creating a whole developer portal. So when a different technology company or different provider needs to come and work with us, instead of us being the bottleneck of having to, do the work for them, we could allow them to, based on specific agreements, that they can come in and develop what they need to in our platform.
Interesting. Because that's the big feedback that we get from some of our carrier partners is, look, to overhaul our system, it's going to be, multiple years in the making, and it will be many millions of dollars for us to do this.
Yes.
And in many cases, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the resources, they can't take that step back to make that transition. And so it's almost like this insurmountable objective.
So I'm glad you said that. That is very true. And that's a challenge we run into a lot. So just organizational politics, organizational priority, being too busy. What I would challenge that in is they don't truly understand how it's hampering their business and how it's hampering their staff and how it's becoming an anchor on the business. I would challenge anybody who's sort of in that space to find out a way to take the first step. So don't think of solving the problem all at once, right? So could you put a technology in place? Doesn't have to be Docupace, could be any technology that helps get you a little bit there and then a little bit there. Because I think that's the only way to do it. You look at these systems that are like one of the world's largest banks has these nice, awesome metal cards, credit cards that clink on the system, but they're running on technology from 1985 in the back end. So the card's cool. They branded it well, but how it all processes and runs in the back end is ancient technology.
And you think about, so the other frustration I have with just insurance in general, and I don't mean to be, it's the space I live in. So it's like, you think about a car. Well, by the time that I actually purchase that vehicle and I am driving off the dealer lot in that vehicle, the technology is probably already at 18 months antiquated. Maybe more, maybe 3 years antiquated. I think they've gotten a little bit better, and certainly Tesla is an exception probably to that rule.
It's certainly true for like the 2010 to 2020 timeframe.
But you think about an insurance company that says, okay, yeah, we're going to allocate, I don't know, pick a number, $2.5 million to build said technology that's going to overhaul the one that we have since 1985. It's going to take, by the time I've deployed all those resources and gotten ready to where I actually can launch the technology, it's already an obsolete technology.
That's why you need a partner. That's why you need a partner like us that
bingo.
You're not responsible for it. We are, because most of the large groups years ago.
You do what you let us do insurance. Yeah. You do what you do really well, and let's just figure out how we partner together. This is the logic that I struggle with.
So we run into it now and then with this, well, we're going to go build it ourselves. And it generally comes up when like a new technology lead comes in a firm and he's like, I'm taking things over and we're just going to build it all ourselves. Incredibly expensive, an impossible challenge because it's not day one, it's day +1, +2, +3, +4 that you have to keep updating the software. We could do it because we're doing it for all of our clients, not just the one system. It's,
so you get economies of scale. One siloed company does not get scale.
Correct.
But why do they? Why are we in this position of that's the way they're doing it?
So I think it's a couple things. One is they're busy. It costs money, so the CEO or CFO sees a $2.5 million expense, and they don't know where to combat that to, right? So if an accountant's thinking, T accounting, well, there's got to be credits and debits. They see the debit coming, but the credit's going to come over time. That's part of it. The other part of it is operations and the way that things work often get behind sales and growth and marketing and practice management and all the other sort of shiny objects. Compliance is another one. Compliance I used to sit in these prioritization meetings and we would say, well, here's our most important projects. And then compliance would say, jump up to the top and say, well, the regulator date is X, and we have to be X. And it's like, well, what are we here for then? It's a challenge. I think also the thing is they don't realize it's broken. So like compensation is interesting because now that we have a compensation product, I've asked, done surveys and other things, and it doesn't matter if we hate it if it works. If we get paid, we're good. And that's something that we have to work through and sell through and sort of make sure they understand the opportunity that's ahead of them. Luckily, the current economic conditions are pushing people there. They need to be more economical. Margins are being compressed. People need to be more effective. So that is working in our favor, but the slowness of decision making is always going to be a challenge for us.
Yeah, I would believe that to an extent. It's like many of the customers don't know what they don't have until they've gotten in the car, so to speak, and are like, wow, I had no idea.
And then the other side of it is, say you're a large enterprise, you've got to convince people to use it and train them to use it, because you don't want to block that application from coming in the old way because it's money in pocket, and you've got customer service stuff. So there's lots of challenges you have to work through.
Right.
But I think the strong operational leaders are in constant flow of making incremental changes as they can.
Okay, so what do we see the next 36 months? Where is DocuPace heading?
To the moon, man. To the moon.
And back again. That's right.
So this is a really exciting time for DocuPace. So we have, we've done a couple acquisitions. We've matured our business in almost every facet of our business. So we've, with talent that has walked out the door, we've been able to replace it and upgrade it. We've been able to upgrade our service organization. We've been able to upgrade our sales and marketing organizations. And we are, last year we celebrated our 5th year of double-digit growth, which is great. We will surpass that level of growth this year, which is even better. And we're actually seeing things accelerate despite an economy that may be slowing down. So the two things that I think would point out, one is we're really working with our partners to diligently figure out ways that we can work together to achieve a common goal. So, the two wealth tech or two fintech companies don't need to operate in silos. Let's figure out how we can work together to solve problems for clients.
And there's so many. It's gotten so noisy, so confusing. There's so much product.
It's way too many products, and I really think people don't even know all that they're paying for. Like they're probably paying for technology that they don't even know they have.
100%.
Because they did it some other time.
Right.
The second thing is we hired a company called MetaLab, which is based in Vancouver. And they are hired an internal person to be our principal UX UI designer, and we're overhauling the complete user experience for our platform. It's needed. We have a 21-year-old platform that's been built over time, but it's going to completely transform how people interact with our system. Our system was built to solve problems as our clients arose. Now we're looking at all those things and stepping back and saying, how can we drive their improvement in experience there? And that's something that it's moving fast. That's my next meeting after this one is to go to a readout of the research interviews that they've been doing with different customers. So that's something that we're excited for. And then, I mentioned we released that RA product back in December of 2022. We're just getting started. So we have over $2 million in opportunities that have already come in. So just in the past 4+ months. And that's continuing to grow.
Yeah, I would imagine. How many mid-level RAAs exist in the country?
There's a lot. So the target market for that, like I said, more than 25.
Because your market really isn't the one-man band, right? It's really not.
No, because generally the custodian solves most of their needs. The challenge is when they come multi-custodian or they get closer to $1 billion in assets or have multiple offices and multiple systems they need to integrate with. But there's almost 2,000 of those.
Right.
That doesn't even include the big boys up at the top. That's another 275 or so. So
right.
there's a large market there, and it's growing every day.
Mm-hmm. You talk about M&A space and that, it's incredible, and I don't think it's slowing down. You're talking about the next 3 to 5 years, a third of the advisor force is going to be retiring. Well, they're selling their books, or these clients are just going to become orphaned.
Yeah, and that's an important point. I think where DocuPace actually helps from the optimizing advisor standpoint, which is a lot of advisors who are somewhat thinking about it, contemplating, or they know they're approaching that time period where they're going to retire. A business on DocuPace that has been cleaned up and processes digitized, that you don't have an old dusty closet with client folders for 30 years, it's a lot more acquisitive, if you can take those steps and be able to make those improvements in your
100%.
business.
And there's so many advisors who exist out there who still file cabinet advisors.
I don't hate
It diminishes
paper.
the value of your practice significantly.
Here's another thing that's worse. What people will do when they think they're digitizing, which is they will scan something in as an image from the paperwork and think, oh, I've digitized it. Well, you can't Control F that. You can't, you know what I mean? So like
true.
there's all sorts of things that I think can be able to improve the user experience there, and being able to, again, going back to the data point, actually use it to inform your business.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. That's good. All right. Anything else?
No, this is really fun. I mean, I'm interested in the insurance conversation. I'm interested in hearing more about that because that is a key market for us. It's a key, we believe in holistic financial planning, and insurance is a huge chunk of that. So we should continue our talks about that.
I would love to. And it really is. And I would say it's exacerbated. Look, things mellow out when maybe the demand for the business is really, really earned. And let's say, typical adage, right? Insurance is sold, not bought. Okay, to a point, I get that. However, I would tell you that right now, annuities are an insurance product. And with the rise in interest rates in very, very short order, as we're all seeing, we've seen an incredible increase in the flow of annuity business in particular that is creating real pain points with any level of distribution. Yep. Starting with the advisor and all the way and up to the insurance company and even the transfer process. I mean, it's just matriculating its way through the entire process. Companies are having to go beyond their rate lock period. They're having to reissue policies, which, as we all know, doing anything outside of the ordinary process is extremely expensive. It's far from perfect. And it gives the whole industry just a bad stain. And in particular, RIAs and wealth managers who are used to moving money around very efficiently with the click of some buttons. And I'm oversimplifying, but it is not the laborious process.
Not much red tape.
100%. And so we badly need to increase communication amongst carriers. We badly need to increase efficiencies of money flow from one institution to the other. And we very badly need to continue to increase the integration of technology for the submission of applications.
So a couple things to add to that, because I totally agree. The insurance industry itself hasn't marketed itself that well in terms of like the wealth management side. I think the idea about sold not bought is, yes, that could be true, but it also could woefully not be true, right? Like, those adages, they tend to stick.
Exactly.
They tend to stick around. But they have licensed individuals who are selling these products. Like, these are informed people who have license. And no financial plan is complete without the proper insurance in place. So, it should be just the same as the advisory account or the other things, because it's just as important.
Amen to you.
And then the biggest thing I think is, if you look at longevity. So if you're married at 70, the chances of one of that spouses living to 90 or 95 is super high. It's like 75% or 80%.
Exactly.
It's crazy high. That's only going to continue to grow long. So when people think, well, I need to save and be able to, decumulate my assets, and I'll set it at 95. What about if we set it at 125?
Right.
I'm not saying it's going to change that quickly, but it's going to turn the whole business over.
Oh, absolutely. Longevity and even estate planning laws. You're talking about what could happen potentially in 2025. I mean, so here's what is going to happen. Most likely, the estate tax limits are going to be dramatically reduced, probably something down to $2 or $3 million per individual. So you think about how many households have, including real estate, all assets, a net worth beyond $4 to $6 million. Well, if I live on the coasts,
sure,
a third of that is probably tied into real estate. And then do I have 401ks and other assets? Many, many individuals are going to be in a position of needing proper estate planning that advisors should be ahead of now, because you and I both know what's going to happen. The 12 to 24 months leading into that deadline, estate planning attorneys are going to be completely overwhelmed. They're not going to have the bandwidth or the time, and it's going to be, quote unquote, too late.
So my personal story with an advisor. So my wife and I got married in 2012. About every 6 months after that, she would say, we need to get our insurance docs and health docs in place. We needed to get our life insurance and stuff in place. 6 years, I said, yeah, okay, honey, I'll get right on that. 6 years, I didn't do anything. But when we started working with an advisor who's a friend of mine, we had it all done within 6 months because we had our meeting scheduled, and I didn't want to show up at the next meeting and say, nope, I didn't do what I thought I told you I was going to do. There's huge accountability value in that, and working with an advisor, working with a trusted person. The other thing that I think is critical is that's all they have. It's like my parents are both recently retired. Like the money they got now is all the money they're ever going to have.
Right.
So like they got to figure out how to maximize the use of as much as possible, and every decision can make a huge impact.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Sidebar. That's another reason why I was very enamored by Intergen and the conversation I had with them. Previous episode, by the way. But the access to that information and how acute that data can be in working directly with clients and what the potential pitfalls can be in your retirement, properly applied, invaluable. It was amazing.
So nobody thinks they're going to get cancer. In my family, like 1 of every 4 has gotten cancer, which I think maybe goes about statistics.
Right.
That's pretty good odds, right?
Yeah.
And luckily we've had nothing that's been horrific and nothing that's been, but
I would tell you, 100. Nobody wants cancer. We all believe we're not the one, but in the back of our head, there's that little sound that's saying, "But what happens if?" And we just sweep it away, especially males over females.
Forget those 20 years of smoking I did, or don't pay attention.
Exactly, and so not going it alone, and having an advisor that's somebody that really helps put the feet to the fire per se, and say, "Well, but just what if?"
This goes back to your optimization, optimizing your life. When you're ready to get out and retire and sell your business as an advisor, an agent, the time to do so is long before you're ever ready to sell. Like you got to have a plan for it because you're going to be doing all sorts of other stuff, and your mind's going to be way over in right field with the change. So making the plan, making it extended, it's best for your clients, best for your business, best for yourself. I also think that you're doing yourselves a disservice if you're not preparing for what could come your way. My grandfather had a stroke at 80, died at 85, lived in a not so great but extremely expensive nursing home care for 5 years. Like that was, if he hadn't been prepared for it, like I don't know how we would have afforded that.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank the Lord he did do some preparation beforehand.
Yeah. That was military service and postal service pension. So kudos to them.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in today.
Awesome. It's been great.
This has been wonderful, very insightful.
Did I mention I was passionate about the business?
You did a little bit. That's right. Till next time. Cheers.
Good to see you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment or review. Be sure to check us out on social media at Optimized Advisor Podcast. Till next time.